What's up, my dudes? Got us a little bit of drama in Supercross, so just wanted to come in here and give my own little opinions on this, and it's just my own opinions at the end of the day, okay? You can disagree with me, that's okay. We could be two people that disagree on something, alright? Not that big of a deal, I promise. So what we're talking about here specifically, if you didn't watch the race at Anaheim 2, in the 250 main event, pretty much the biggest story of the whole night was the big collision, little scuffle between Ferrandis and Craig. That was the biggest story of it all. I know Ferrandis had he kind of ran into Lawrence there a little bit, and also had a little run-in with Forkner as well, but main thing we're talking about here is the Big Daddy, the big run-in with Craig, where Craig flipped over his bike and everything, right? Okay, so in a nutshell, the way I look at it is I think that was more of just a kind of like a boneheaded accident more than it was like a intentional Michael Lessie T-bone tickle incident. You understand what I'm saying? I think this was way more of a Ferrandis was just kind of riding a little too aggressive, just kind of riding impatient, trying to pass people way before he really had the pass made. I think that's really more like what it was versus a, true enough, full-blown, he intentionally just went out there to completely destroy Craig. Like, some of you guys are getting that idea in your head, and I just really don't think that was the case at all. I mean, what the hell reason would Ferrandis have to go out there and just, blow Craig out of the water? He has absolutely no reason at all to do that. Like, it's not like they have bad blood whatsoever. It's not like it's really championship on the line yet or anything. It wasn't like it was on the last lap. It wasn't anything like that. There is literally no reason for Ferrandis to have intentionally done that. And it really didn't even look like he intentionally did that. So when it came down to the whole, AMA trying to review the situation and potentially dock Ferrandis some points for doing that, because Ferrandis did cross the finish line in first place and, technically got the win in that sense, but they had it under review to see if they were going to strip him some positions for that. And I think AMA made the right decision on this, not docking him any positions and go ahead and giving him that win, because if they would have docked him for that, the rabbit hole, they're opening it up at that point. And that was the thing I was the most scared of about AMA reviewing that, was like, man, if you dock somebody for that, I've seen people run into people twice that hard intentionally and not get docked for doing it. I'm talking like more than 50 times. You understand what I'm saying? I've seen that a lot. Once you start going down that rabbit hole of starting to like dock people and suspend people for aggressive riding, ooh man, you're going down a gray area road that I don't think you're ever going to get fair or figured out. You understand what I'm saying? It's okay to go in there and be like, oh, you shouldn't hit somebody that hard, or you shouldn't do this or that or whatever. That's cool. But to actually dock somebody, now you're starting to police the situation too much. You understand what I'm saying? Let that shit handle itself on the track. If Craig thought that Ferrandis hit him too hard or whatever the case may be, then, it is what it is, and they can handle that shit on the track. You don't want to try to police it too much, because then what's going to start happening is once you start docking this guy for too aggressive of a pass, then people are going to be like, well, then you need to dock this guy, and then you need to dock Tomac for running into this guy too hard, and then you need to dock this dude over here because he ran into that guy too hard. I don't want AMA Supercross to get too soft to the point to where they're just, docking everybody for the slightest little run-in with them. Like, that's what I'm saying. You can't really... I understand whenever somebody intentionally just goes out there and it's like they just held their bike wide open into the side of somebody, then yeah, it's like, bro, what the fuck are you doing? Like Michael Lessie into Tickle, I don't know when that was, like 4 years ago in an LCQ or whatever. It was like he just held his bike wide open, ghosted off the back of it, and ran it right up into Tickle, right in the corner. that to me is like one of those occasions where it's like, all right, yeah, you can probably dock somebody some positions for that or something, but not like a super hard impact racing incident where it's not really all that intentional. It was just more of a boneheaded move. You know, that's what I feel like that was between Ferrandis and Craig. And I think it was one of those situations where the crash itself looked a lot worse and a lot more intentional than I think it actually was. Like, if you go back and look at the crash itself, it was one of those things where it was like, it was those 1 in 1,000 crashes where it was like the way that Craig came off of the berm and sort of decompressed his suspension. The bike was really light at the perfect moment when Ferrandis sort of slid his bike a little bit too far underneath Craig. And for whatever reason, it just did this really weird, almost like the inertia of the bike sort of collided and locked together, and it just basically exploded Craig's bike. And that's what caused the whole flip over incident and all that. But a typical little bump at that sort of speed would not have caused that kind of crash. I'm just telling you, it was the way that, like, somehow Ferrandis' the ass end of his bike slid underneath Craig's bike at the perfect moment, and it just like unloaded Craig's, suspension. And that was just one of the most bizarre wrecks that I've ever seen in my life. But, people that don't really understand that, they'll just see that at a first glance and be like, oh, what the fuck, Ferrandis? What are you doing, bro? Oh, my gosh. Like, I'm not trying to defend Ferrandis, but what I'm getting at is that was really weird how that wreck looked. I mean, it was just really bizarre. Craig, had a fairly decent get-off there, but I really don't think it was all as much of what some people are making it out to be as far as how hard Ferrandis really purposely tried to pass Craig. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, Ferrandis is not retarded. I've never seen him really, be like super aggressive like a Barsha or anything like that. Like, Ferrandis is not even known for that. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was him getting as bad of a finish as he did last week, and he's really trying to get the win at all costs to make up points. I don't really know, but I'm just saying this is not like something Ferrandis is known for. It'd be one thing if he was known for this, and then he goes in there and does it again. Then it's like, okay, what are you doing? But I just think it was one of those situations, one of those random nights where some dude's, riding way too aggressive, and it just kind of bit somebody in a weird way that it doesn't typically do, and that's all it comes down to. I really think some of you guys need to just tone it down a peg on this one. You know what I'm saying? And this is what happens with any sort of these situations where two dudes run into each other. People get very biased towards who's in the situation, not so much what really happened in the situation. You understand what I'm saying? You get a lot of those incidences where, for instance, what was that, 2 years ago when Monceu ran into Tomac on the last lap of a main event, and everybody lost their shit over that and thought, oh my God, Monceu, you're riding way too rough, way too aggressive. Oh my gosh, what are you doing, bro? And 2 or 3 weeks before that at Daytona, Tomac did the exact same thing to Webb in a corner, and nobody said shit about that. You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of bias towards who gets in these incidences out here, right? Like, for instance, if Tomac runs into somebody, I mean, he's literally going to have to blow them completely off of the track for somebody to be upset about that because it's Tomac. You know what I mean? He's the fastest USA hero out here. So that's what happens with that. So, but when it comes to some of these other dudes from these other countries, people are so harsh against them when they get in these collision moments with the United States riders. I mean, they really do. And I try my hardest not to do that. I try my hardest to look at the situation at hand, not just who's in the situation. You understand what I'm saying? And I really want some of you guys to do that because it seems like 99.9% of you guys out there, you're obviously just looking at who was in the situation, not so much what really went down in the situation. For instance, 2 years ago, when, Monceu ran into Tomac on the last lap, had you flipped all that around and had it to where it was Tomac running into Monceu a little hard on the last lap, people would have just looked at that like, oh, Tomac, he was just racing. It was the last lap. He was just riding hard trying to get the win. Nothing wrong with that, right? But the second that Musquin does it, it's like, oh, no, fuck Musquin. Oh, man, you can't ride that hard. Oh, my gosh. And, Tomac's talking in the, the after-race interview. He's like, man, you just can't ride that hard, man. There's just limits to it, man. It's like, bro, Tomac, good God, dog. You can't be serious. You literally just did that to Webb 2 weeks before that. It's, I don't know. But so anytime these sort of situations happen, what I do personally to try to keep it as fair and unbiased in my head as I possibly can is I try to flip the whole situation around. Flip the riders around, okay? So look at it as if, in this particular situation, look at it as if, what if Craig was the one that ran into Ferrandis like that? Would people be losing their shit as much as they are right now? I really don't think so, bro. I really don't think they would be. It would have been looked more at as just oh man, well, Craig came over that jump and, slid into Ferrandis a little hard, and it was just an accident. I really honestly, genuinely think a lot more people would have thought that way had Craig been in Ferrandis' shoes. You understand what I'm saying? But it's the fact that it was Ferrandis against Craig. Craig's, kind of not really had all that good of a finish in a while. I feel like a lot of people are kind of rooting for Craig, wanting to see him up there, and he finally gets a good start in a main event. So then it makes Ferrandis look like this terrible guy, this just, horrible, bad guy that took out Craig. And so, a lot of people look at it like that versus, was the situation really all that intentional? Was it really? Probably not. It was probably more of an accident than an intentional. It was way more of an accident than an intentional situation. But, don't take it like I'm trying to defend Ferrandis, because I'm not. He made a boneheaded move there, ran it in too hard. He for sure 100% did, and I'm not trying to question that. And he probably ran it in a little too hard on Lawrence, but Lawrence just went ahead and kept on the throttle on that damn jump. I don't know how he saved that. Now, the incident with Ferrandis and Forkner, I don't really think that was all that much of an incident at all. It's such a gray area. You're never going to be able to have that like, well, this kind of riding is allowed, but that kind of riding's not. You can't really do that. You're either going to allow anything or allow nothing when it comes to aggressive riding and running into people. As far as the rule book goes, that's just about how it has to be, because if not, you're going to be playing favorites. You're going to have all these unfair different incidences that happen and different outcomes that come out of them. But there are the occasional super, super above and beyond extreme incidences where it's fully intentional. Somebody fully T-bones somebody and they go flying, and you can 100,000% tell it was intentional. That's different, like in that Michael Essie tickle situation. But this, to me, it just wasn't so much like that. I think it was more of a dude riding a little over his head, a little too hard, trying to pass somebody a little too quick, got into that corner a little too hard, and just slid under Craig's bike in a weird way, and it caused this catastrophic outcome and made it look way more intentional and way worse than I really think it actually was. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Craig shouldn't be upset about it, because he definitely should be. I would be upset about it. But as far as like trying to dock the guy for that and all that, come on now, dog. Come on now. Now, if he has a history of doing this or keeps doing this a lot or whatever, yeah, you can start looking into that more, but not off of one incident like that, man. You just can't be that harsh on one incident like that. So either way, I know a lot of you guys kind of lost your shit over that moment, but I think it's one of those things. It was one of those really was one of those 1 in 1,000 wrecks where the bikes sort of locked together in a bizarre way, and then it looks like you exploded a hand grenade under the bottom of Craig's bike, and it just like launched him over the bars. I mean, you could tell Craig wrecked going forward, okay? Had Ferrandis really ran into him that hard and really T-boned him that hard, Craig would have launched on the other side of where Ferrandis was. You understand what I'm saying? He didn't even wreck that way. He wrecked straight. So it was literally like Ferrandis' wheels locked under you know, Craig, because of the way he kind of bounced up off of that berm, and the bike got really light off of that berm, and then it just caused this weird inertia explosion, and then it made Craig flip over the bars in a kind of a violent way, right? Sometimes in motocross and supercross, the bikes just do that. They just lock up in a weird-ass way. Like, what I'm getting at is if that didn't happen, like, if it would have been a normal wreck at that speed, Craig may not even have fell off the bike. It would have just been a little bit of an aggressive hit, and Craig would have stumbled a little bit and then regained control of the bike. It was just like the outcome of the way it looked, I feel like, is swaying a lot of people's opinions on how it went down, and I just think it was one of those weird crashes that don't normally happen like that. That's my honest-to-goodness opinion on it. Was Ferrandis definitely riding over his head, making too aggressive passes, trying to pass people before he really had the pass made? Yes, yes, and yes. All those things, yes. I'm not disagreeing with, like, that being a bad move by Ferrandis. That's not what I'm saying here, you know. I'm just trying to make that really clear. I'm just saying some people blow it way out of proportion from what I think it really was. And as far as trying to, like, dock the dude positions for that, no. Really don't think that would have been the right move on AMA's part. So either way, it's just one man's opinion out here, you know what I'm saying? Don't get too upset over it. It's just, that's the way I feel about it. I try to keep things as fair as balanced as I possibly can, man. I try not to look at like, well, he's just a French rider. Oh, fuck him. Or this guy's American, so I'm going to love him no matter what. Like, I try to look at the situation at hand. And whenever I flip all that around in my head and make it to where it's like, what if Craig did this to Ferrandis? Would I be this upset about it? And I looked at it like, man, wow, no, I wouldn't be this upset about it. If I flipped it all around, I was like, wow, dude, like, if Craig would have done that to Ferrandis, we wouldn't have been nowhere near as harsh on Craig for doing that as we are on Ferrandis. So that's what makes me realize that I'm off balance in my own head whenever I start thinking things like, man, oh, stupid Ferrandis, why did he do that? You know, it's like, whoa, be careful, Spence, be careful. You gotta keep this thing a little more balanced here between everybody. You don't want to be that kind of guy that's just biased about somebody or a country of people or whatever. Got to be real careful about that. So either way, just trying to keep it as balanced as I can in my head. Was Ferrandis wrong for this? Yes, he definitely was, 100%. What I'm getting at, though, is he definitely shouldn't have been docked for it, which he wasn't, which was good. And I just feel like it was more of a weird explosion situation more than it was an intentional, oh my God, he just, you know, destroyed Kristen Craig. Like, I think there's just a very different situation. Like, what happened is very different than I feel like what a first impression somebody can get about it. You know, you can get that first impression really easily, like, oh, fuck Ferrandis, you know. But it's like, man, once you look a little deeper into it, you start to realize it's not as much like that as you might think from the naked eye. So, either way, just my opinions on it. Appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.